Turn 1 Soul Ring.
Got it. Riley's not here to say got it. Can you say got it?
Got it.
Nice. Nice. All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
And we have our editor and guest host, Ainsley, joining us again.
Hi.
And we are continuing our Time Streams Explained series today. Last week, we gave you some backstory on Talaria, as well as the new characters in the story. We also covered Urza and Baron's first experiments with their time machine. We left off with Karn finding out that Joyra's castaway Carrick was actually a Phyrexian sleeper agent that was about to infiltrate the academy with a group of negators.
Ooh.
And if you don't know what a Phyrexian negator is, there is a card with the same name. And you can just go look that up wherever you are right now.
And you can just read that.
Just read that. Just, yeah.
If you know how to read.
Sure they do. Well, I mean, if you listen to a lot of podcasts, you really don't need to know how to read.
You just hear
You just go by pictures. You just go by the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Anyways, Karn shared that information with Urza and Baron. And just as Baron went to alert the Academy defenses, the Phyrexian attack began. Because remember, that was like 2 days earlier, and Karn comes back.
The very next day.
After that, yeah. And now the attack has begun. So Karn immediately left the lab and began to search for Joyra. His first stop was her room. It's a good first stop, where he had to kick in the door after calling for her and getting no reply from inside. I don't think normally he would have done that, but in it's a tense situation.
Yeah, totally.
Once inside, Karn found Joyra's lifeless body.
No.
Yeah, she's dead. That's it. It's just like when I just nonchalantly told you guys that Zancha and Rutepe were dead.
Yeah.
The Planeswalker.
That was...
Just came out of nowhere. I'm like, turns out they're dead.
Yeah, I was a little shaken.
But Joyra...
Yeah. No more. She's no more. The state of the room told him that there had been a struggle. There was a pool of blood surrounding her body with bloody footprints leading to Joyra's wardrobe. The door of the wardrobe was open slightly, and Karn could see a glowing green eye looking back at him from inside. It was one of Carrick's negators.
Oh, it wasn't Carrick, like, hanging out in there being like, ooh, this dress is pretty. I'm going to put it on because my hair is so pretty.
He does have beautiful golden curly hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he has blue eyes.
So?
Well, it's green. It's a glowing green eye.
green
oh,
eye.
Right. Okay. I thought you were saying, but he has blue eyes, so, he sucks. I'm like, what?
No, I have blue eyes.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was so confused.
No, we have this second rarest color eyes. That's great.
Second rarest.
Yeah, because I think green is the rarest color, and then blue is right after it. And then maybe black. Do people have black colored eyes? I think so. Or maybe it's just a super dark brown.
Like
I think it's dark
Elizabeth
brown.
Taylor had like purple eyes, they say.
What?
And there's hazel. There's all those different kinds of greens and blues. You could have like teal eyes. Or you got Betty Davis eyes. Yeah. But anyways.
You could have tinted eyes. That's a new song. Anywho, okay.
Anyways.
This one had glowing green eyes.
Glowing green eyes. And the negator emerged from the wardrobe and spoke 2 sentences to the Silver Man.
Disarm and deactivate yourself, and you will be taken intact. Otherwise, you will be destroyed.
I always imagine them too, like if you know what a negator looks like they're kind of like snake-like, like they'd be like they drag their S's, but
Disarm like that.
Anyways, unfortunately for the negator, Karn wasn't interested in either option. And what unfolded next was a grisly fight to the death between a massive silver golem and an even larger Phyrexian. The negator was also much faster than Karn, because, like we brought up last episode, Karn was not built for speed.
Karn slow.
Yes, Karn derp.
Karn smash.
But it was no match for the golem's enormous strength.
So, like, this photo you have here, is that supposed to be the negator?
Yeah, that's the... I think that's from the original printing of the card, probably from the Urza block, I think. It's got a cool, like, knife on the bottom of its chin.
Yeah, I also thought it was, like, what does Phyrexian Obliterator look like?
That's the one that's actually, like, good. It's, like, playable in mono black, right? It's just, like, quadruple black.
Quadruple black?
Yeah, Phyrexian Negator is kind of I think it's like a 3-mana. I think it's 2 and a black for a 5/5. And whenever it takes damage, you have to sacrifice that many permanents. Like it's a pretty risky card to play, but I think at the time it was considered okay.
Yep.
That's power creep for you.
That's the obliterator goes the other way because your opponent has to sacrifice instead of you.
Yeah.
So that's actually
but they
good.
they don't look too different, honestly.
He's got some pretty nice abs.
Oh yeah,
He's fit.
he is shredded for sure. There's
This
zero body
negator
fat on
is
that
pretty
guy.
shredded.
Yeah. So the fight ended when Karn put his fist through the negator's skull and into its frontal lobe. It fell to the floor, but it wasn't dead yet. So Karn used his massive foot to stomp on the negator's head, reducing it to an oily mass of slumped skin and bone.
Nice.
Yeah, and this is really the first time we get to see what Karn is physically capable of, and it makes me think of the contrast between his physical power and his personality. I think that really is what makes him such a great character.
Because he seems gentle.
Yeah, like he's super strong and he can fight these, scary monsters and get in a time machine that would even kill a planeswalker. But, on the inside, he's very much a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then when it comes to it, let's destroy some Phyrexians.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely. And, Joyra's death for Karn, I think, is the first pivotal event that turns him into the Karn that we know today. If you know the whole Karn story, up to the point where I guess we last left off in, I guess he was in War of the Spark. He's definitely changed a lot. But
Yeah.
it's also kind of, I was thinking about this, and it's kind of similar to what happened with Urza and Mishra. So, Karn's been told about what he was made for, to travel back in time to stop the Phyrexians from ever existing. But he's also been told about Phyrexia currently by Urza, and how bad it is and how scary it is and what a threat it is. But, now he's seen it firsthand, and so now he knows what he's fighting, but also now he wants to take revenge or vengeance because they killed Joyra, who was really like the only friend he had.
He was his BFF.
Yeah, the only one that treated him like a living thing.
You know what that last F stands for?
Forever.
Forever.
Yeah, and it's going back to Urza and Mishra, what the Phyrexians did to Mishra. That's why Urza vowed to take revenge on them. He might have anyway, but vengeance.
That's the big
is a very
point.
powerful thing.
Yeah, totally.
So watch out who you cross.
Don't cross a big silver golem.
That's right.
No,
Just today, Kevin was asking me if I'd ever heard about, there are people who steal your Amazon packages, which is rude, right?
Yeah.
If they see it, on your front step, and we have really short frontage, so
And
it has
no
happened
fence.
to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no fence.
Oh, you
short
guys
frontage.
have?
It's happened to us. Yeah, we're on a busy street too.
Yeah, you are.
And Kevin was saying that, you can do stuff like glitter bomb, an empty box. So if someone steals it, you're getting them. But then he made the good point of but they know where you live.
Yeah, you can't get them.
So, you can get them, but they might get you back with that vengeance.
And unless you have one of those doorbell cameras or security cameras, you don't really get to enjoy them getting got.
No.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to see it.
Who would open the package there? You don't walk over and open
you-
it up on the step.
What's
You open it at home.
Yeah, you grab it and you run.
Anyways, let's get back to the attack on the Academy. So shortly after the fight with the Negator, Karn heard yelling from the hall.
They are everywhere. They're killing everyone. Baron is dead already. Teferi too.
Ouch. This is like the whole cast of characters here.
This is a sad part.
It is. I don't know why I'm laughing.
Because you're fucked.
Well, I already experienced this, so I'm numb to it.
Oh, okay.
Right? But when he went back into the hallway, he saw Urza arrayed in battle armor, making quick work of two negators. I don't even think Urza really needs the battle armor because he just wills his corporeal form. It's not really. He's just he's passed beyond the need for physical form. That's kind of what makes him hard to kill. I don't know if that's a thing with every planeswalker, but I know that's kind of Urza's thing.
I think that's just an Urza thing.
Yeah.
And like, you know how it is if like say you're not really like in the mood to go to the gym, but then you get home and you put on your gym clothes and you're like, yeah, this is my like workout outfit. So now I'm feeling pumped to work out. So maybe that's what it's like. He's like, I got to put my armor on and get psyched.
Oh yeah, like
Sure.
I don't like doing the show in like my scrubs, or like like I like to look good when I'm recording the show, even though nobody can see me. But it is like
I put on mascara and eyeliner today.
yeah,
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's just nice to it feels good to look good if you're into that. But
Feels good to look good.
Ooh, yeah.
or yeah, more appropriately,
It's Urza's motto.
Yeah. So Urza told Karn that it was too late to stop them all, but if he could send Karn back in time, they might have a chance to save everyone that's been killed so far.
Oh, yeah, the time thing.
So Karn's mission was to travel 2 days back in time, find Carrick, and kill him before he could lead his negators into the academy.
Okay, this is getting good.
That's going to like cause a lot of time ripple stuff, though.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody's stakes are going to be burned. Oof.
When Karn arrived in the past, at the same point when Carrick was slowly opening the laboratory door, remember that from last episode, instead of slowly going after him, Karn raced toward the door and down the hall after him. And again, Karn, not built for speed.
Yeah.
Or stealth. The chase led them to the Hall of Artifact Creatures, a large room that housed most of the artifact creatures that the Academy no longer used. Carrick was not familiar with this room, but Karn was, and being an artifact creature himself, he was able to easily hide.
Cool.
Karn waited near the exit that he knew Carrick would try to use, per his previous pursuit of the man. When Carrick got close enough to the exit and to Karn, the Silver Man emerged from his hiding place and grabbed Carrick. This next part is from the novel.
There is an unmistakable sound when bones, whether human or Phyrexian, snap. Carrick's lower right leg folded below the knee. Shrieking in agony, the man crumpled to the floor.
Karn got him. So instead of killing Carrick, Karn decided that it'd be better if Urza and Baron were able to question him and find out as much as possible about the upcoming Phyrexian attack and just generally, just get as much information out of him as possible. So he hoisted the man over his shoulder, and when he reached the hall, he alerted the guards and anyone else who could hear him that he had captured a Phyrexian spy. I caught a spy. It was...
Yeah, I'm sure that was exactly what he said.
It's probably better to just yell, like, Phyrexian, like witch.
Yeah.
Witch!
Or fire if you're being attacked, because people actually look.
Always yell fire if you're being attacked.
Don't
everybody.
yell help.
Don't yell help.
Yeah, fire.
People won't help.
People care about their damn selves.
That's our advice for today. Real world advice. Okay. It was at this point that Karn started to feel the pull of the machine that wanted to bring him back to the present. Just before Karn was pulled back, he threw Carrick from his shoulder and disappeared. When Karn arrived back in the lab, Urza and Baron were desperately trying to maintain the machine's power output. The machine wasn't powering down as it usually did, and shortly after Karn arrived, the machine exploded.
Shit.
Yeah.
Is it because he changed too much?
Yeah, I think that's probably what happened because, like, they, as they were doing the experiments early on, as they'd send him further and further back, those little time ripples
were happening
all over the island. So I think, I think it wasn't so much that they sent him too far back. I think it was more that too much changed. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing is that the Karn that arrives back in the lab in present time is the same Karn. So he still has all those memories of,
seeing Jorah dead and
Yeah.
But when he arrives back in the lab at present time, it's Urza and Baron trying to power it down. And that's not the state that the lab was in when he was sent. It was just Urza. So it's kind of, I think the way time travel works in this, in the Magic universe, or at least on Dominaria, isn't really, I've tried to kind of figure it exactly out how it works, like you can with other stories like Terminator or Dragon Ball Z, but there doesn't really seem to be a straightforward way. They're sort of like pulling from a few different things. So I'm just saying this so like, anybody listening doesn't try to figure this out, because I don't think it can be.
I don't think you can.
Well, I guess like the time that Karn goes backwards in time, like his time is still moving forwards, like where he came from.
Yeah.
That's why he comes back to the situation.
Yeah.
And like the timeline premise where, it's sort of like the Dragon Ball Z premise where if this is Karn's timeline, he was always meant to go back and make these changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, the explosion. It wasn't like a I don't want to say like kinetic explosion, but the type of explosion you get from explosives. It wasn't like that, like a fiery explosion.
Like an implosion.
Yeah, and it was more like it just leveled. It was a huge like bright blast, and it just leveled whole sections of the academy. Like they were just gone, and then other sections were fine, like pristine, untouched. And it did the same thing to like the surrounding forests as well.
It's almost like a time explosion.
It's the ripples in time are kind of like blowing up from like the machine overpowered.
I wonder if that's where they got the title of the book from.
Ooh.
Time streams. Yeah, it is.
Also, one of those explosions are the ones like where it like implodes. So it's like zzzz, and it's like silent for a second and then blows up. You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those ones are cool.
Like in The Last Jedi,
Yeah.
where she flies the Star Destroyer into the no, it's like a rebel ship into Snoke's. Like it's a Star Destroyer, but it's shaped funny.
Yeah.
It's like. So Urza had time in the second before the blast to save several Academy members that were closest to him, Baron being one of them. In total, 5 scholars and 8 students. He whisked them up in a sudden, spontaneous planeswalk. None of them would have survived in their natural states, of course, so Urza transformed them into stone before walking.
Cool.
Well, he can just do anything.
Yeah, he really can. When Urza arrived at the other end of his planeswalk, the last spell he cast was to turn Baron back into flesh, but he left the rest of the guys as stone.
Just so they weren't like wandering about like, where are we? What's going on? And he's just like, I don't want to fucking deal with you.
He just can't deal with it.
Because also like they don't know what Urza can do, so they're like, whoa, what just happened, Urza?
Whoa. He told Baron that Talaria had been destroyed, and they were the survivors. Urza had saved 15, which meant that he had left over 200 students and scholars to die. And just a little aside here, some of the stones that he turned these people into, like, kind of cracked a little bit when he planeswalked them away. And so when he turned them later back into flesh, they just, like, started rupturing, and bleeding. They just bled to death.
Oh,
Yeah,
whoa.
it's pretty rough. Yeah.
That is pretty rough. This whole thing reminds me of, I received a survey, to find out about some consumer product, right? It's like they do tests with certain groups of people. So you have to fill out this little survey. One of the questions on the survey was, what superpower would you want to have? Why? How would it make your life better? And how would it make your life worse? I guess they do that just so they can tell if you can give sort of like logical answers.
Yeah.
But anyway, hearing this reminded me that the superpower I would actually want, I gave some other answer, would be, remember in Saved by the Bell when Zach would go, time out, and like everyone would just freeze?
The movie Clock Stoppers?
Yeah, and like time would just freeze. Like I was thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe I'd want like the power to turn people into stone so I could kind of freeze them in their state and like do what I had to do, and then I could unfreeze them from stone and they would just continue. I'm like, no, like the time out power would be super cool because you could stop people and time. You could just like hang out, play some video games and then go time in.
I think I'd want like Professor X's power. I think I'd just want like super powered telepathy and like mind control abilities. Just like whatever Professor X's mutation is called, I want that.
Cool.
I'd also settle for telekinesis.
What'd you do, Eric?
I have no idea.
All right, well, we gotta think about it.
Yeah, think about it. We'll come back to it at
We'll
the
come
end.
back to it, yeah.
So Urza couldn't do any more to help at the moment, as he was already having a hard time maintaining his corporeal state after using up so much of his energy to quickly save Baron and the others. The blast had created time rifts, or time bubbles, pockets of extremely slow-moving time, as well as pockets of extremely fast-moving time, and pockets with everything in between. So you can sort of think of it like just little like orbs or bubbles on the land that were just separate. They almost look like giant water droplets on the island, and some of them would have extreme fast time, some of them would have extreme slow time, and varying degrees of everything in between. And the thing about them is if you were, say, stuck in one, you couldn't escape, and you couldn't travel into one if you were in like the regular normal time of Talaria. And especially the very fast moving times, like let's say you stuck your arm into a fast time bubble, you would watch it just like grow old and decay and then, you know, turn to dust. If it was like a really, really fast time bubble, like let's say for every hour that passed in regular time, it was like, I don't know, 100 years inside the time bubble. So these things are basically death traps, because just traveling into one or out of one would kind of just tear you apart. Just like how Karn is the only one that can handle the stresses of time travel. This is essentially the same thing. So Karn can go in and out, and other like artificial creatures that are made of silver probably can go in and out. But that's basically these just litter the island now. So, not everyone left on Talaria was dead. Karn had survived the blast and immediately began looking for the other survivors. So, Urza didn't even save Karn. I thought that was interesting. Like, he's right there, dude. You can't. Maybe he just thought he'd survive.
Yeah, it's like Karn's okay. I'm gonna try and save as many humans as possible.
Yeah. So when Karn found them, thus more survivors, he instructed them to head to the east coast of the island and avoid any and all time bubbles for the aforementioned reasons. During the remaining hours of that day, Karn found a total of 33 survivors, so a lot better than Urza's numbers. But unfortunately, Joyra and Teferi weren't among them. So he's kind of feeling like, yeah, I went back in time and saved some people, but I couldn't save Joyra, so...
Couldn't save my best of friends.
Kind of conflicted about it.
Yeah.
Once Karn gathered them on the east coast of the island where Urza kept several ships, they boarded the only ship that hadn't been destroyed by the blast and left Talaria.
Oh, so... Yeah, like Karn doesn't even know where like Urza is and stuff.
No, he doesn't.
Just sails away with these people.
So, okay, a bit of insight from Baron here at this point in the story.
Urza says he did it to save me. He says he let the time machine explode in order to save me and a handful of others, and keep his precious designs from Phyrexian claws. In another time continuum, he claims, I was slain by Phyrexian negators, and the school was overrun. Urza diverted that time stream so we could end up here, or so he says. He is not truly mad, I know that. He may be lying, a terrifying possibility, for what dark motive would make Urza lie to me? He may be telling the truth, all the more terrifying, but he is not truly mad. Talaria is gone, just like Argoth. And why? To save me? Of course not. I was saved from Talaria just as Tanos was saved from Argoth. As a side thought, Talaria is gone because if Urza could not have it, no one would. Urza is still Urza. I doubt he will ever return to the island he has destroyed, return to rebuild, to declare himself father to the scholars he has orphaned. I doubt it. Mad or sane, he does not learn from his mistakes.
But you know what, guys? It turns out Urza is just about to start learning from his mistakes.
It's about fucking time.
Yeah. Looks like Baron's wrong again.
Aww.
So there's a 10-year time jump in this part of the story, and in that time, Urza and Baron reunited with the survivors and Karn, the survivors that Karn had saved, and they had built a new mobile academy on a large sea vessel. This academy was appropriately called New Talaria.
It's a mobile
Talaria
academy.
of the sea.
Yeah, well, if they're mobile, they can't get them. That's probably what he was thinking. Like that meme with the guy and the finger.
That's right.
Like if we're on a ship, Phyrexia can't get us.
Yeah.
So they were now on their way back to Talaria in hopes of building a new academy, as well as to study the many time bubbles that now existed on the island. A new brick and mortar academy. So no more living on a ship.
I read forward. I'm excited for you to say this next part.
As for Talaria, quite a bit had happened in those 10 years. For one thing, Joyra had survived the time machine explosion. So had several other academy members.
Hey!
Yay!
Yeah. They had banded together to survive and learned how best to avoid the various time bubbles that littered the island.
Banding.
The fairy had also survived, kind of. He had been caught in an extremely slow time bubble when the blast occurred.
So did he turn into a baby?
No.
He
It's
just doesn't
that
age.
time moves slowly from like where you are. It doesn't go in reverse.
Okay.
That'd be
Right.
fun though. Like if they did like, you know how they did like Muppet Babies, if they did like a show where it was like
Magic babies.
yeah, and it was like the Planeswalker characters, but like as little Muppet babies. That'd be fun. I mean, I would put that on for Violet.
Yeah.
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 It'd be cool if there were just little time streams floating around that would like age backwards. So it's like, oh, my face is starting to get some wrinkles. Instead of going to get Botox, I'm just going to stick my face in this time stream for like 2 seconds.
It's funny that you say that because there's something similar coming up. Ooh. Something a little bit
Foreshadowing.
Similar. Yeah. So, because a flesh and blood creature would be killed in the process of traveling into or out of one of these bubbles, like we mentioned earlier, Joyer was unable to rescue Teferi, and he'd remained there for the entire 10 years. For him, though, it had only been seconds since the explosion. Cool. So he's essentially still like running away from like a, like falling debris.
Yeah.
It's like Interstellar.
Good movie.
I haven't watched it
I
yet.
need to watch it again.
The last bit was a little bit. It just
a little
wasn't
shoved in there.
Yeah, it just
Don't
wasn't my
say
cup of
anything.
tea, but the rest of it's good.
Oh, have you never seen it?
I haven't
Eric?
seen it yet, and
You should.
and I want to.
It.
I like
Yeah,
sci-fi, and I like that.
I was.
How was that director?
I-
Nolan.
Chris Nolan.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan.
Chris Nolan.
Yeah, it's a good 3 hours.
I was into it start to finish. Like,
Yeah, it was very good. I would get into the characters that survived with Joyra, but it really doesn't matter because by the time Urza's Mobile Academy arrived on Teleria, they had all been killed or died, most by accidentally falling into a time bubble, one from old age, and lovers that decided to commit suicide together, thinking that they would never be able to leave the island. Because, like I said earlier, Karn and the survivors took the last ship.
Shit.
The
Yeah.
But, they're on an island full of trees. She's an artificer. Like, you can't build something? Like, Tom Hanks
or
did it.
like if you're on the island with your love, it'd be different if they were like on separate islands. But then
They're together.
They plan it together.
Yeah, I don't know.
Stupid.
At least you're
Plot
together.
device. So, the silver lining to all this was that Joyra hadn't aged in the past 10 years. She was about 20 when the time machine disaster took place, and now she was almost 30. And she discovered that if one drank water that ran from a slow time bubble, it slowed or stopped the drinker's aging.
That is cool.
Interesting.
This is how Joyra became quasi-immortal. If you ever wondered about that as a longtime MTG fan. So, a certain Phyrexian had also survived the time machine disaster. Carrick was also trapped in a time bubble, but unlike Teferi, it was a fast time bubble. For every year that passed on Talaria, 10 years passed inside what had become Carrick's pocket Phyrexia.
Oh.
So, it was 10 years. So what? He's 100.
Yeah, it'd been 100 years for him.
Okay.
But he's a sleeper agent like Zancha was. So
Right. Oh, right.
He's
immortal.
So he's probably just a daddy now.
He's basically immortal. He is a daddy, yeah, because the card Crick, because now his name is now Crick. He's not
because it's
Carrick.
faster to say than Carrick.
He changed it, yeah, and now he doesn't have beautiful golden locks. He's looking much more Phyrexian these days.
Much more Phyrexian.
He still has blue eyes though, and he's essentially like a tiny Yawgmoth daddy that ruled a tiny Phyrexia, and his card from one of the relatively recent commander sets is Crick, son of Yawgmoth.
I mean, I'm here for a tiny Yawgmoth daddy.
Great. So Carrick had legions of negators to command and nowhere to send them because, of course, they couldn't escape the time rift, time bubble. But in the 100 years he'd been trapped, he'd been working on creating a Phyrexian that would be able to pass through the time bubble. And with each new generation of negators that he engineered, he was that much closer to escaping. So anyway, Joyra saw the New Talaria approaching from her coastal home and decided to travel to the East Bay, where the docks were still intact. I mean, use the wood from the docks to make a boat, Joyra. What are you doing? Anyways, when New Talaria made landfall, 5 exploratory parties got off the ship and began gathering information about the current state of the island. The parties were made up of students and scholars, and Urza and Baron were also in a party together.
You need 2 more to make a full party.
That's topical. On the first day of exploring the island, each of the parties lost at least one member to the time bubbles, and one of the parties was completely wiped out. That night, while the remaining crew was eating dinner on New Talaria, Joyra arrived on board to share with them what she had learned about the island in the past 10 years. She's like, hey, everybody, I'm still alive.
I'm interrupting dinner to let you know I'm still alive.
Can't you see these time bubbles though?
Well, you can
Sort
and
of.
you can't. Like if it's a very extreme time bubble where like the flora, are those the plants? Flora
Sure.
and fauna? Yeah, if the
Yeah.
Fauna's the animals.
Yeah, if the flora if it looks very different, like let's say it's a really fast time bubble, but a lot of times like the slow time bubbles aren't as visible. And like with that picture I have here, that's like one of the edges of Crick's time bubble, but it's going to look very different because it's Phyrexia.
Yeah.
Right? But some of them no, like you can't really see. Some of them are big, some of them are small. You know, it's like the island is a real death trap. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, well, they just keep losing people to time bubbles. Like, don't walk in it.
Yeah, it seems straightforward.
Have a pocket full of stones and like throw them as you're walking.
Well, they don't bounce off; they go through.
Yeah, but you'd be able to see what happens. Yeah. I guess if it was slow.
Just cordon them off, like Joyra. What have you been doing? I mean,
You're not kidding. You've had 10 years.
Yeah.
Find them.
Yeah.
Put some rope around them. Put a big rock in front of it. Come on, get creative.
Yeah.
There's got to be coconuts on that island. Come on.
Yeah, what were they eating? So, Urza, Baron, and Karn were all surprised that she was alive, but very happy to see her, especially Karn.
Karn happy.
Karn is a happy boy. The following day, Joyra guided a caravan of 50 students and scholars to the center of the island to make camp. This was the place that would eventually become a new brick-and-mortar Talarian Academy. On their journey, Joyra helped them avoid the various time bubbles, as well as showing them the pocket Phyrexia that Crick had built. This was Urza's first time seeing it, and obviously this was something that Urza wasn't happy to see, and something that he would have to deal with.
It's like, I just got to this island. I got to clean up this fucking mess.
I got another mess to clean up. He's like, this is why I don't deal with my mistakes. So once they arrived at the desired location on the interior of the island, they made camp and began to lay the groundwork for the new academy. They started with a tent city and slowly built it into another academy. This took the better part of 10 years, and this academy was even bigger than the original.
Wow.
And it was really more decked out with defenses and defensive weapons. They had built more of a fortress than a school this time around, which is probably what they should have done in the first place.
Yeah, really.
So were they like at all mad at Joyra about the fact that like, you know, she had Carrick in a cave and like didn't tell him about it, and then he ultimately brought the demise of old Talaria?
I mean, it's kind of, you know, like, because I don't think they know that's like a different time stream. Like, none of them would
Karn
know.
knew that.
Yeah, only Karn would have been like, spy, and then they would have like they did like question him, but then he escaped before the explosion happened.
Right.
Which I didn't add, but that's in the book. Yeah. So I don't think I don't think anybody knows but Joyra and Karn. Wink, wink.
And like Jorah doesn't
Teferi
feel
would know.
guilty. Are there any like moments where she's introspective and is like, "This is all my fault"?
Yeah, she does feel guilty. Yeah.
Okay.
And she has some trust issues too because, you know.
Well, yeah, because he had beautiful blonde hair, and then he ended up being a bad guy.
Yeah, it's like when it turns out like your longtime boyfriend is like a serial killer or something. You know.
If I had a nickel.
Or worse, your parent. Like, how would you ever trust? Anyways, they also worked on techniques that would free Teferi from his slow time bubble, as well as using the various time rifts for experimentation. You know, to grow things or
That's smart.
quickly.
It's like I have a little potted plant. I'll plant some corn in this little pot, pop it in a time stream. Boom, corn. Not to be confused with Karn.
No, don't do that. And they also used this time to construct a new flying machine that they plan to use to drop a bunch of bombs on Crick's pocket Phyrexia. It's just more fun to say than Carrick. It's like, Crick.
Crick.
So it's just imagine like a blimp. It's essentially like a blimp type device or ship device.
Hindenburg.
Yeah, it goes down like the Hindenburg, spoiler alert. Because even though Urza's goal was to build a new academy and continue the preparation for the Phyrexian invasion, he also had a score to settle with Crick. So we're going to get into Urza's first attempt to destroy the pocket Phyrexia that he had sort of created on Talaria. And, you know, the thing about Joyra, yes, you know, she is introspective and she does feel just guilty that she was duped and, you know, all this happened and that she should have just turned him in. That's school policy. But, Urza might have also caused the time machine explosion at any time. Like, that might have just been a matter of time, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, you might be wondering why Urza was keen to destroy Crick's Phyrexia, other than Urza wanted to exterminate anything and everything Phyrexian. He rightly thought that the Phyrexians trapped in the fast time bubble would be devising a way to escape into Talaria and the rest of Dominaria, and they were.
Very correct.
And in the last, I suppose at this point it's been about 200 years for Crick, because there's the 10 years where they were not on the island and they came back, built the new academy, another 10 years. So he's getting close. He's getting close.
He's devising a plan. He's been getting stronger this whole time.
Crick himself would probably never be able to escape, but he could grow negators that would eventually be able to withstand the trip from their fast time bubble to the regular time stream of Talaria. So, like I said before, Urza's plan was to blow the whole thing up, the whole pocket Phyrexia. And even if Urza wasn't able to kill all of the Phyrexians, he hoped to at least destroy the labs where Crick grew his negators, to at least set them back a few more years, which would probably be just a few months on the outside.
Oh, yeah.
So once Urza and his assistants had built the airship that would drop the bombs on the Phyrexians, Urza got into the pilot seat and lifted off towards Crick's fast time bubble. Crick. There were several Academy members on board as well, Jorah being one of them. Urza couldn't control the entire airship from the pilot seat, and so he needed a few crew members for things like maintaining altitude and maintaining the ship's radius and other stuff,
Someone's got to mop the floor.
What is maintaining a ship's radius?
What is the radius? I don't know. If there's like a blimp aficionado listening, let us know what the ship's radius is.
I guess
Blimp.
I guess like if you see something around the blimp, you gotta like alert the pilot. Be like, hey, something
Hey,
on
there's a bird.
port side.
Or maybe it's like radius around the time stream bubbles. Like keeping them out of a radius that is around the ship kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, maintaining the altitude was extremely important. They had to keep the ship at a minimum of 1,000 feet in the air because the Phyrexians could release projectile weapons from inside their time bubble that could damage or bring down the ship. And remember, it's just a giant balloon, so it's probably pretty easy to take down.
I think also, like, usually when you're flying, maintaining altitude is extremely important.
Oh, yeah, of course. Just anyway. Yeah. Good point, Eric. A projectile traveling through a time bubble would slow it down, but it was still a very real danger. After the ship lifted off and reached the desired altitude of 1,000 feet, it didn't take them long to reach Crick's pocket Phyrexia. And once they did, projectiles did indeed start flying from below the airship, and just as Urza had planned, the airship was high enough to avoid being struck by them. Urza began to release bombs on Crick and his cronies. They penetrated the time bubble easily, but there was a slight delay, then a bright white flash before the entire time rift was filled with black smoke. Before dropping more bombs, they had to wait for the smoke to settle so they could acquire new targets. And in that time, the Phyrexians would be able to assess the damage done and redouble their efforts to bring down the airship.
Oh boy.
This is so weird, like fighting in like a time rift.
Yeah, because like they have, in the time it takes for the dust to settle, the Phyrexians have like a couple hours, and Urza and his crew, it's minutes for them.
Yeah.
So it's really it's like that like the card No Mercy, the black card. The flavor text on that is a quote from Crick, and it's we had years to prepare while they had mere minutes. And
nice.
That's the whole battle between Crick and the Urza and the Academy.
That's interesting.
So on the outside of the Phyrexian time rift, inside the time rift, Crick was assessing the damage done by the first wave of bombs. Over 150 of his minions had been killed, 3 of his towers had been toppled, and the top of his throne room had been blasted away, and worst of all, his spawning lab had been destroyed.
Oh, that's a good hit.
Mm-hmm.
My spawn.
That's a good one. We've never done that one before.
Yeah.
Just saying something like when you shoot. Is that what we're talking about, Eric?
Oh.
It's just
So the half-mature negators that Crick had been breeding to survive the time rift had been roasted alive. I bet they smelled bad. But Crick quickly made order of the chaos, like any good leader does. The fires were quickly extinguished, the dead and dying were thrown to the fishes, and the ballistas were calibrated for greater distance. All this
Oh,
happened in
boy.
the hour after the initial bombing, and by the time Crick could see the outline of the airship through the clearing smoke, he saw another salvo of bombs just below it. Boom. That's not a good feeling. Crick had enough time to evaluate where the bombs would strike and evacuate those areas. This guy's got time on his side, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Crick began to order the ballista operators to begin firing bolts at the airship, but to aim them half-cocked so that they would fall short in an attempt to lull Urza and his crew into a false sense of security that would make them lower their altitude.
Oh.
Which is essentially what they did.
That's pretty smart.
Lol.
Lull. Yep. Urza and his crew continued to drop payload after payload. By the sixth drop, the Phyrexian gorge below them was a gray scar in the ground. The airship had also dropped in altitude significantly. At this point, Crick's plan had worked, and the skyship was struck by a ballista bolt, then several more. The first couple of bolts struck the bomb bays of the airship, and they immediately began to ignite and explode. What was left of the airship began to descend toward the Phyrexian time rift. Baron saw the ruined ship falling and summoned a wall of air to slow its descent, but it was no use.
Oh, boy.
He saw, Joyra's always getting into the shit. He saw Joyra climbing up the side of the ship while it fell, and when it hit the time bubble, she was thrown from the craft, which saved her life. Like, whoosh. She totally missed it. She was in a coma, though, when they found her. Urza also survived the crash, but the rest of the crew wasn't so lucky. Everybody else died. As for Crick and his minions, they were able to save some of his subjects and materials from his breeding laboratories, which meant that it was only a matter of time until they were able to escape. Escape!
Oh, is that close?
So, Joyra remained in a coma for the next several years, and in
Whoa.
that time...
Wow, why didn't they just put her in a bubble?
That's what they should. That's a good idea. And in that time, more buildings were added to the Academy grounds. Urza continued to build machines of war to fight Crick and his Phyrexians, and Urza began a project to find and use as many Thran power stones as he could. It's like a callback to his early days in the desert with his brother. Yeah, when they were archaeologists.
He's always got a little project on the go.
He's a busy guy. Too busy for friends and family, but he always does have a project. Some people are like that, though. You know?
Some people are all about their work.
That's right. He would need them for the army he was building, the Power Stones, that is. To achieve this, Urza sent students and a few scholars to 3 Thran sites across Dominaria to find more Power Stones, because they couldn't make them. Urza also planned to send Baron with them to return with even more new students for the Academy, the best and brightest that Dominaria had to offer. This task would take 3 years to complete. So now we're at it's probably been 30 years, this whole story so far. While Baron was gone, Urza continued to research how best to get rid of Crick's Phyrexia on Teleria, as well as a way to travel into the most dangerous of the time rifts on the island without being killed. After Baron's 3-year-long task, he had finally returned with more students and Power Stones, which was perfect because all Urza had been doing for the last year or so was building an arsenal to destroy Crick. So we needed those Power Stones.
Needed them. And also some more students. Whenever it's some test that Baron just gives them, hey, you smart?
Yeah.
Hey, what superpower would you want to have if you could have one?
Yeah, that'd be a good question. Well, I still know that they need to be kids. They can't be. Urza still has the only kids allowed because he doesn't want another Crick mishap. Mm. It's that's why I only allow kids. Crick. Urza should have built his arsenal faster because by this point, Crick's first generation of negators that could survive the trip through the time rift were about to be decanted and tested. This first generation wouldn't survive very long after coming through the other side, but it was a start. This information didn't go unnoticed by Urza, as a couple of patrolling Academy guards began to find the dead bodies of negators that had made it through the time rift. But it would take another 10 years of regular time for Crick to breed negators that would be able to walk uninjured through the time rift that trapped them. Man, that's a lot of time. It's 400 years. Anyways,
yeah, it is.
It's at about this time that Joyra finally wakes up from her coma. And after lying in a bed for the better part of 10 years, she had quite a bit of rehabilitation to do. This took about 6 months and was almost completely administered by Karn.
This is like the nice, light part of the story where they're like, he's like helping her walk through the fields and stuff.
She's like, what am I going to do about my legs?
And she's like, this is hard. And he's like, don't worry, you can do it.
He's like, look at my legs.
They're big.
They're big and slow.
And he like walks with her like you would with a baby.
Yeah.
Holding her hands up above her head.
And then when she gets tired, she just rides on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is nice. Man, I would love it if I had like a big Karn. He's sort of like the Chewbacca to Jorah's Han Solo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Jorah also woke up explaining that she knew how to rescue Teferi from the slow time bubble he was trapped in because she'd had a vision during her coma.
Fun.
In the 6 months she spent recovering, she had created plans for a machine that would be able to travel in and out of extreme time bubbles without injury to its user.
Fancy.
Urza and Baron weren't too keen on building Jorah's machine. They just got other stuff to do.
self-centered
They just got stuff to do.
Who cares about Teferi? We got this friction problem over here. Come on.
Teferi's kind of a troublemaker. Let's just fucking leave him in the bubble.
So Karn gathered any students that would help, brought them to the infirmary, and they started the work to bring Jorah's designs to life. Lady in the chair. 3 months after they started, the machine was ready to be tested. It was wheeled to the edge of the slow time rift where Teferi was trapped, and the students who built it began to set it up. It's kind of hard to describe, but essentially a machine with 2 large windmills on each side and like a central part where the user like sits and controls it. And the machine is made up of other parts that move the windmill, as well as create a mist of water for the person inside it. But this is just an idea of what it looks like. And I couldn't find a picture of it, but Jorah explains how the machine works.
This is also just kind of funny because the pilot stands in the middle of these 2 moving wheels. It reminds me of the character Axel from Twisted Metal. He's just like standing in between these 2 big wheels.
Cool.
Nice.
We'll have to check that out.
What's the mist of water? Water's important. Okay, we'll figure that out in a minute here. I was going to ask what the water's all about.
It's just a nice light mist to keep you cool while you're in the machine.
Like when you're walking through the streets of Vegas, you'll just get misted. That's what happens.
Or the Millennium Library, that thing that mist the dirty downtown water on you.
The principle is simple. Water resists time change. We have witnessed this. We survivors of the First Academy use the properties of slow time water to stop aging. So too, fast time water is reluctant to give up its pulse. This machine draws fast time water from a nearby rift that contains an underground spring. The pumps here fill the reservoirs with water. These sets of cranks then power the wind turbine and the gauze sails. The windmill blades dip into the reservoir, drawing water into the gauze. Wind from the turbine blows through the gauze and produces a thick fog of fast time water. The saturated fast time cloud will create a safe corridor of passage into the time pit where Teferi is, and safe passage back out again.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Misty.
Yeah, it's like Sierra Mist. Remember those commercials? We never got that here because we're Canadian.
We're Canadian, eh?
The machine had not been tested on anything organic, and when Karn at first volunteered to use it for Teferi's rescue, Urza volunteered to go with him. If Urza also survived the trip into the time bubble, then Teferi would survive the trip out.
Oh, well, at least he's doing that as some nice thing.
Yeah. He comes through once in a while, for sure. Jorah's machine worked perfectly. Karn and Urza were able to travel into the slow time bubble unharmed, and once inside, they quickly explained what had happened to Teferi, and just as quickly traveled back out of the time bubble with him. And just to put things into perspective, they were in there for like a couple of days, but on the outside it was, on the outside it was a couple of days, and they were in there for, seconds, probably 30 seconds maybe, in the slow time bubble time.
Cool.
Teferi was still a teenager, by the way, so if Jorah thought he was too young before, she's definitely not going to date him now. She's like pushing 50 at this point. After having the entire situation explained to him, Teferi didn't take it really well. The time that he had lost weighed on him over the next few months. More than anything, he was devastated that all his former classmates were nearly 25 years older than him, I don't know. It doesn't really talk about this, but I'd also be upset that most of them are dead too.
Also sad.
After a little pep talk from Joyra about the fact that she was 40 and looked 20, and the fact that time and age didn't really matter on Teleria, Teferi's perspective gradually began to change, and he became a more mature version of his old self. Aww. That's nice. I think that's what we should all be shooting for.
You know?
That's that. So this is growing up.
This is growing up.
Growing up in the world of magic.
And that's where we're going to pick back up for part 3. It looks like now this might be 4 parts. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but we'll pick back up next time right there with Teferi getting into some hijinks.
But mature hijinks.
Only mature hijinks. Yeah. Thank you all for listening, and Ainsley, thank you for joining us and for turning our recordings into something that the people want to listen to every week.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's always fun.
If you enjoy this type of content, the lore series, and want us to cover a particular part of magic lore, you can find us at Turn One Soul Ring the podcast on Instagram and YouTube, and let us know in the comments section of this episode or
slide into the DMs.
Yep. Absolutely. Slide right in there. We'll respond. Comment and review our content because it helps. Even if it's a bad comment, like you can leave that. I have it set up so we allow all comments. It can be like hold some kind of inappropriate comments. No, you can post anything.
And if you follow us on Instagram, and you know about the save post button, if you want to save any of our posts, that also helps us out, because the more posts are saved on Instagram, the more they're kind of shown to new audiences.
Yeah, that really helps.
It really helps. So I know like some people kind of have, those saved collections and they're kind of carefully curated. And if that's you and you don't want to save them, fine. But if you don't really save collections anyway, it's like, one more button to quickly press and it helps us out a bunch.
Yeah. Anyway, you can find me on Instagram at Command Beacon, and you can find Ainsley on Instagram at
Ainsley Amethyst.
That's right. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Say bye, Eric.
See you later.
Yeah, there you go.
That's Ainsley's bye.
Bye-bye.
Turn One Soul Ring.
Light it up.
Light it up.
Yeah, you're better at it.